Goals. I'm assuming that you're here today, you have bigger goals than what you had before you came. Am I halfway okay in thinking that? Whatever way you want to do something a little bit bigger, improve on what you're going. I think a lot of landlords don't reach their goals, and I'll give you a couple of reasons. One reason is they don't have measurable ones. Now, if you've got this, I applaud you. If you don't have any of this, my name is Jeffrey. And I'm your friend. Okay? But a lot of people, landlords, don't reach bigger goals because they don't have measurable ones. And because they don't have measurable ones, 1 year from now, they're kind of in the same place. Oh yeah, they want more money, but let's get more specific. They want more properties. Let's get more specific. They want to fill their vacancy faster. They want to keep their residents longer. They want more free time, but let's be specific. What does that mean? What does that translate to? How many hours are you actually working in your business right now? Are you working 20 hours a month right now in your business? Okay, and is your goal 10? Good, now you have a measurable goal that we can start to go toward. But most landlords don't have measurable goals. And then they don't have benchmarks to reach those goals. Once you have the goal, okay, what is your benchmarks? What are you going to do leading up to get that goal? And they don't have checklists to reach them. Same thing that I talk about as we talk about the book. So if you've got big goals, please make sure they're measurable. And then break those goals down into smaller parts. And then have checklists to reach those smaller parts. Highly encourage you to do so. And many landlords don't compare their goals and checklists to others. When you come to a meeting like this, and I'm going to do it during my presentation where I'm going to ask questions and ask for your feedback. One of the reasons why I want you to hear feedback from other people is so you can see, well, wait a minute. Jeffrey said he does fills his vacancy within 3 days. That's an interesting benchmark. I didn't know that was the case. That should be the case, or that could be the case. Jeffrey suggested that a resident should stay in your property 6 years. Okay, now, whether you go along with my suggestion or my benchmarks, that's not my point right now. My point I want to make to you is this. Here, benchmarks of other people. I do a convention once a year. I do a retreat once a year. What's the big deal? The big deal is, one, you get a lot of information, but you also get to hear what other landlords are doing, what kind of benchmarks they have set for themselves. And maybe your benchmark that you're using is not as good as it could be, or is not as good as you want it to be because you didn't know that, other landlords can do it that way. Maybe I can too, punch a nail in a shoe, for whatever that's worth. All righty. Don't delegate. A lot of landlords don't delegate. And you know the biggest reason why they don't delegate? As one person said to me before the meeting, I'm frugal like you. I'm a frugal person. But you got to be careful that frugality doesn't affect you as a rental property owner. You know, you're saying, I can cut the grass myself. I can do the plumbing myself. But it's limiting you at the same time. I'll take care of that. That plumber going to charge me $95, $100 to do that job. I can do it and take me 10 minutes. Yeah, but by the time you drive out, by the time you get your tools together, then drive out there, then do the job. Well, even before you do the job, you got to talk to the person if they're there, if you want to be cordial. And I'm in Virginia, and they think you got to really be cordial when you're talking to people. So I got to say hello, how you doing about 3 times. I'm originally from California, by the way. Got my bachelor's degree from UCLA before moving to Virginia to get my master's degree in communication. Got that from a school called Regent University. Back then it was called CBNU, but that's another story. What's my point? My point here is careful about being frugal. In fact, now remember, my name's Jeffrey and I'm your friend. A couple of you didn't get lunch. Not because you didn't think it would be a good lunch. You looked at that and said, $49, $24. I can go up the street and get something for $10. I don't need to spend the $24 for lunch. It's a buffet, by the way, but that's beside the point. The point is, you have an opportunity to network and hear some ideas that may, no guarantee obviously, but that may spark you to add an extra few $100s to your cash flow, add an extra $1,000 to your income for the year just by hearing an idea shared by another successful rental property owner. So again, my name's Jeffrey, I'm your friend. Be careful. That frugality mindset comes into play, and it comes into play for me. I mean, I'm talking to myself just like I'm talking to you. I got to be real careful myself in terms of, wait a minute, am I doing something that's actually limiting my success? So now it's much easier for me to say, wait a minute, I'll hire somebody to do that job. There's no need for me to spend 5 hours dealing with that job when I can get somebody else to do it. Sure, it may cost me $150, $200, but at the same time, can I use that time? Can I use that time to be able to generate more wealth? In fact, how many of you ever have stopped and put value on your time? You know, is your time worth $10, $20, $50, $100, $200, $300 an hour? But put value on your time. And so it makes it easier for me to say, no, I'm going to hire that out. Now, if you're not, I joked a little bit earlier, halfway joking about landlords who cut grass. Well, if you're not going to be doing anything else profitable during that time that you're cutting grass, go ahead and cut the grass. But if you can use that time, and that's another thing. Part of this whole training is to help free you up. But once you get freed up, how are you going to use that time more wisely? I just spoke at a OREA convention, Ohio Real Estate Investors Association. They had all kinds of mighty speakers there, talking about all kinds of ways to get wealth, which is great. I don't knock that at all. The only thing is, if people don't really catch whatever it is that's being taught, and then say, once they got the time free, now I can use that time to utilize the idea that this speaker talked about, or that this book talked about. But no, a lot of times we don't use the time that gets freed up. So even though I'm going to be encouraging you to have more freedom, make sure you're using the freedom for whatever you want it to use it for. And that doesn't necessarily mean more properties. When I got more freedom from my rental property, I said, you know what? I always wanted to write a book. So let me write a book. And I did. But I wouldn't have been able to do so if I didn't have the time, freedom, and the time-wise to do it. Of course, the book ended up helping me get some more wealth, because once people say, oh, that's an author, let him come in here, we can hear him speak. Doing the same thing I've been doing, but now I had a book. Yeah, now I'm qualified to come out. I also headed up business ministry at my church. Why? Because I had more freedom. So it doesn't necessarily mean you do stuff to get more wealth. My wife likes to travel. We started traveling more because we had more freedom. So when I say use your time, it doesn't necessarily mean to create more wealth. It might just be enjoying things. But whatever it is, make sure you know what your priorities and your goals are in doing so. Okay, so be careful with a frugality mindset. In fact, would you believe some people never come to our landlord retreat because they're being frugal? We're going to Cabo, by the way, in January. But I'm not here to sell you on Cabo. But I am here to encourage you. Time is short. Time is short. People keep talking about we're going to enjoy life. At some point, make sure you don't let that some point come and you're not able to actually enjoy it. Identify your goals, income, growth, freedom. Be specific in terms of that. When I first started as an investor, I wanted to grow, but I put a specific thing in mind. I wanted to gain at least 5 properties a year. But that's a subject on another whole level. I'm just pointing it out because we're talking about growth, freedom. Landlords who have identified their goals are going after them in a way that does not have good success. Here's how it traditionally plays out for some landlords, and some of you may not, I don't know if this applies to any of you, but here's what a traditional landlord does. They think after they get so many properties, they'll have enough cash flow, they can hire it out to a property manager. The only thing is when they never get to the point where they get enough properties to hire it out. And they continue to do all the work themselves, and as a result, they only grow so much, 5, 10, 15 properties. Then they get frustrated because they're doing it themselves. And guess what they end up doing? Selling or quitting. And it's not necessarily the same thing. Selling or quitting. And then some landlords go a step beyond that. They get up to what they think is enough cash flow to hire a property manager, but then the property manager is taking just enough income, so now they're back at ground zero in terms of how much income they're receiving. So it's like, yeah, I got somebody helping me, but I don't seem to have as much money. And then the third way is they hire somebody, they got enough properties, they got enough income, but the property manager doesn't work out well. Guess what happens next? They're back to ground zero because they have to fire the property manager. I already shared with you, I want you to get to the point where you've got an alternative way to play this out. Alternative business path. It's not about managing properties. You know, my wife at one point said, I was talking to her, I was real excited. There's another property coming available. Would you believe she wasn't excited? More work. That's exactly what she said. Not only more work, more headaches. Why? Well, you said that like you can identify. But here's the thing. That's not the case for us now. Because I have assistance, I get another property, it's more wealth, it's not more work. In fact, as I get more properties now, I'm able to leverage the assistance that I have. Everybody with me? And if you're doing all the work, then sometimes, especially if you got a partner involved, sometimes the partner, like my wife, it was like, no, I don't know if we want to get another property, because all she could think about was more headaches. So I want to manage a business. I don't want to manage properties. I want to gain more freedom. I want to take your business to the next level. People, property to people to systems management.